What's going on YouTube? So the Toyota 4Runner is of course a rugged and old school SUV, but that hasn't kept Toyota from giving it some important and modern upgrades for 2020. So what we're going to do is fully review this 4Runner, check out all of its new features, and see if they have made it better or made it soft. All right, so let's go ahead and kick things off here with the exterior styling. Now this is not where Toyota spent any of their attention for 2020, so it does remain mostly the same this year. Now, across all of your trim levels, every one of them has a different face. So you're looking at an exclusive design here on the limited trim that features a lot more chrome than in the other models, especially this large chrome bar that runs all through this area. Now that I'm over here, I'll talk about the lighting. This does remain the same across all of the trim levels. It's always going to be halogen projector beam headlights with the halogen fog light mounted here or a little bit lower on the other models. Now as I stoop down, I do want to point out the ground clearance. Since of course this is a rugged off-road SUV, you have very generous 9.6 inches of ground clearance. So now let's go ahead and talk about the wheels. We have what is my favorite design of the entire lineup. This is the 20-inch contrast alloy, exclusive to the limited trim only. Now if you choose to have the limited nightshade model, that has basically the same wheel but fully blacked out. And then as far as all the other lower trims, those are going to have 17-inch alloys. And then jumping up here to your mirrors, you do have heating across all the models. However, blind spot monitoring, auto dimming, as well as power folding, none of those features are available.
Now before we get around to the rear, I do want to point out a few different things. So up top on this limited trim, we do have the silver roof rails. And then heading around to the rear itself, on the limited you are going to find several different chrome accents that you will not find on some of the other trim levels. So this piece right down here is going to be limited exclusive, and then you do also have this part that is in silver, or it can be blacked out on some of the other models. Now as far as your tail lights, these are going to be partially LED. The brake light unit itself is LED, the rest is incandescent. And then down here on the bottom right corner, you are going to find an exposed exhaust outlet. Now if you had a real keen eye up in the front, you might have noticed that there is a sensor up there, and that has to do with a big change Toyota has made for 2020, and that's adding safety sense to all of the 4Runners this year. That means for the first time you're going to have forward emergency braking with pedestrian detection, lane departure assist, and adaptive cruise control with auto high beam headlights. Well, as Drew alluded to earlier, there are some bigger changes on the inside, so let's go ahead and check those out before we take it out in a spin.
So walking up to the 4Runner, we already have one of the 2020 updates. Not the fact that there is a smart entry system, but that it is more widely available this year, now starting on the SR5 Premium and higher, where it was previously reserved for just the limited trim. Now to get inside the vehicle itself, of course there's a sensor behind the handle, so you just grab it. And then taking our first look inside of the cabin. There have been quite a few updates inside of here, not really to the design, but mostly to the technology, so we'll get into that as we go through the video. Now, as far as your different interior color and material combinations, there remain quite a few. So you will get cloth seating on the base models. If you go for the premium versions, you'll have soft text leatherette, and then here on the limited we have real leather. Now most of the models, they come with just the choices of graphite or sand beige color options. However, on the limited here, we have the extra option of this color here called redwood. And then looking over here at the door trim, you will find it nicely appointed with a leatherette material that runs across the armrest as well as across the entire middle part here with a color contrast stitching detail. All 4 of your windows are going to be one-touch automatic. And then right down here you will find 3-person memory seating on the limited trim. Heading down here to your seats, these are the 8-way power adjusting seats which come on the premium trims and the limited. And then like I already mentioned, this is real leather. It does feel nice and premium, and I really do like this color. It's a unique color, kind of a dark red. You know, it definitely adds a unique touch to the 4Runner's cabin. Now, of course, as you'd expect, since we have running boards, getting in is actually quite simple. Now, like I alluded to earlier, cabin design as well as materials have not changed for 2020. So across your upper dashboard here, you'll continue to have a hard touch material, but it does have this interesting textured look to it. Down below here, we have a large piece of faux wood trim. You continue to have this thick silver outline that goes all through here. And then on your lower areas, these are going to be hard touch, but everything does fit together really solidly and has that nice durable feel that you expect for the 4Runner. Now across your premium trims and the limited, you have push button start. And once it starts up, you'll notice these updated gauges for 2020. So this new setup basically has a larger multi-function display. Now you can scroll through all the typical kinds of information. Most importantly, the settings for the new safety systems which have been added to this 4Runner. And then coming back to the steering wheel itself, we actually have hydraulic power steering on board. And you will find a nice leather wrap steering wheel across all of the trim levels. Now, as far as the wheel itself, it is going to be manual, tilt and telescoping, and heating is not available on any model. Alright, so let's go ahead and roll into interior storage here. So we'll start out under the center console. And opening up, I have to say, first impression is it is very large. Definitely goes down quite deep. There is a felt lining at the bottom and a little bit of a separated shelf right there. So I don't think it's going to have any problem with the coupons once we stick them in there. Yep, easily swallows them up. Plenty of space for those and even more. Okay, so we also have our cup holder, a little slot right here, another cup holder, and there is a shelf right through there, although it is too small to accommodate a wireless phone charging pad. Alright, so coming back here to the shifter, this is kind of the traditional Toyota truck shifter. So you just pull back for drive. You can bump over here to the left if you want to shift manually, but obviously there's not going to be any paddle shifters. And then when we go into reverse, you will find a standard backup camera across the board. You do have some basic guidelines, but no active trajectory. And then here on the limited, you will also have rear parking sensors. Now, the other thing I want to point out in this console area is going to be this button right here. This is for your power rear window. It's actually a standard feature on every single version of the 4Runner, and this is something you just don't find in vehicles anymore. You know, it's definitely a kind of an old school feature, and for a lot of people that really like to have it, this 4Runner is really the only way to get it. Alright, so up in front of the shifter, you also have your four-wheel drive controls right through there, and then up above that, we have a USB port, a 12-volt outlet, as well as our seat controls. Now, heated seats are going to be standard on the premium models, and then here on the limited only, that's where you're going to have 3-stage ventilation. Right above that, you have the rest of the climate controls. Now, here on the limited, we have the dual zone automatic setup, So as you can see, you just adjust your fan speeds right through there, and your temperatures with these large knobs. All the other trims are going to come with a manual setup instead. And then as we proceed up the dashboard here, the next thing we come to is our audio system. Here on the Limited, we have a 15-speaker JBL Green Edge sound system, while all the other models come with an 8-speaker setup. So let's go ahead and sample this premium sound system. Yeah, overall sound quality is definitely excellent. Alright, so now that brings us here to our biggest 2020 change inside of this cabin, and that's going to be a brand new screen. This is definitely one of the areas that was the most dated about the interior last year, so it's definitely good that Toyota has updated it. We now have an 8-inch display where previously we had a 6.5-inch display. It is also running the latest Toyota Intune 3.0 software versus the older style Intune, and that does give a lot of benefits, including the fact that you have access to both Android Auto and Apple CarPlay abilities this year. And here on the Limited trim, we do also have integrated navigation. Now moving on up here, you will find an auto dimming mirror on your premium models as well as the Limited trim. And you also have 3 universal remotes right up here. Now if you look closely, you'll see you have a few of your off-road controls up here, including your hill descent control. And then we also have the button to open up the power moonroof. Just like a lot of the premium features in this vehicle, it does come on the premium versions of the TRD Off-Road and the SR5, as well as the Limited and the Limited Nightshade.
Alrighty, so getting back into the 4Runner's rear seat. This is actually a pretty nice rear seat. Now, of course, it's not as comfortable as something like a Toyota Highlander. However, I do have plenty of space and pretty good feature set. So as far as your space is concerned, you're going to find 33 inches of rear legroom and 39 inches of rear headroom, which is quite a bit behind the Jeep Grand Cherokee and Toyota Highlander for reference. And behind Drew's seating position, I probably have, I would say, 4 or 5 inches of rear legroom thanks to these knee cutouts, and my feet can slide up underneath the seat, so pretty comfortable overall. And then as far as your feature set is concerned, so here in the center, we are going to have standard rear vents across all of the models, and you are going to notice a 2020 change. You are going to have 2 smart charging USB ports as well. And then you can fold down the center armrest. It has a nice leather padding and pop-out cup holders in the end, but you're not going to find anything like heated rear seats or anything like that back here. Now the 4Runner can actually get a third row, although it's not really all that large, and it is optional here on this Limited trim, but we do have that, so I'll go ahead and show you. In order to get back here, you do have access here on the passenger side, so just lift up on this handle, and the seat does slide very easily out of the way, so that's actually a very easy entry. So now I'll go ahead and sit back here, see what it's like. So sitting back here in the third row, honestly, it's not really all that bad back here. It's not as bad as I thought it was going to be. It's definitely worse than something like a Highlander. And as far as your feature set, you're going to have a cup holder here off to the side, but you're not going to find any vents or anything like that. Now, one of the odd things about this 4Runner is that a power tailgate is not available on any of the trims. However, of course, like Drew mentioned in the front, you can actually roll this window down, which is a unique feature that many SUVs do not have nowadays. And heading into the trunk itself. As you can probably tell by some of our camera equipment falling out here, there's not going to be a lot of space behind the third row. It comes in at 9 cubic feet behind the third row. If you fold it, it expands to 47 cubic feet. And if you fold all the seats, it's going to go to 90 cubic feet, which is actually a very impressive cargo figure. And then as far as your features back here, you do have a nice carpeting along the floor. And then off to the right side, you're going to find 2 outlets. So you're going to have a household style outlet as well as a 12-volt power outlet. Now over here at your passenger seat, of course, this is the limited, so we do have a power seat. And then as far as your glove box is concerned, it is dampened. And as far as how the coupons are going to fit in here, you could actually fit them in horizontally, or you could do a double stack sideways. So that's definitely quite impressive. And then up top, we do have a light and mirror in your sun visor, and it does also detach and have an extension in the end.
Alright, so that was our first acceleration up to about 55 miles an hour. You know, so the engine itself has not changed, as you probably don't expect that it did. So you're still looking at a 4-liter V6 engine, 270 horsepower, 278 pound-feet of torque. Both those numbers are going to be less than, for instance, the Highlander. Yeah. I know a lot of people cross-shop the two, you know, because you've got the one that's, you know, maybe more family-friendly, but also maybe a little bit more feminine. Then you have kind of the muscular, more manly option right here. So in comparison to that, I definitely think that it feels slower. But, you know, power it's adequate overall. Yeah. Now the other part of the powertrain that has also not changed for 2020 is your transmission. So you'll still be looking at a 5-speed automatic. Now, of course, that is down on gears versus a lot of, you know, your more modern competitors, I guess you could say. But, you know, there's nothing specifically wrong with it. I mean, it's definitely very smooth. It seems pretty responsive, you know, when I put my foot down. It does shift down. You know, so you are just down on a few gears, but, you know, this is an old school SUV. You already know that. And the people that are interested in this, they don't mind, or maybe they even like that, you know, because it's not going to be hunting around for gears or anything like some people have complained about in 8 and 10-speed automatics.
You know, now that we have made it up to around 40 miles per hour, I do want to discuss a few different things with this 4Runner. Now, of course, this is almost a $50,000 SUV, so it does need to have a luxurious ride. Now, it definitively has a very trucky feel in its ride quality. Of course, you would think that it just you feel sitting high up and all that, but you still do have a really, really soft ride. It does have some pretty good off-road springs, so when you hit something, you really can't feel it. Now, of course, Drew will talk about the con of that and its driving dynamics, but really, as far as your ride quality is concerned, I have no complaints with this 4Runner. It really doesn't have a reduced ride quality over stuff like a Highlander, really.
And of course, this being a giant SUV, you know, going around corners and stuff, that's not going to be its forte. But I will say, it does feel really planted and very solid feeling. You know, you don't feel like you're going to topple over. Some vehicles do feel that way. So it does feel stable, which I definitely like. You just obviously feel like you're moving around a lot more mass than something like in the Highlander. For instance, the hydraulic steering, it was kind of old school, really heavy. You know, again, you either like it or you don't like it. So that's if you're shopping between the two, you know, you just drive the Highlander and this back to back, and you'll notice a lot of differences.
And I did forget to get a sound level reading, so I guess it's only fair for me to see what this vehicle is like going 45 or 50 miles an hour. For reference, it looks like we're going to be around 55 decibels, which is a little bit louder than the Highlander, which is definitely not surprising to me. This sits up a lot taller, it's a lot less aerodynamic, so you're going to have a little bit more wind noise with this 4Runner. Alrighty, and lastly, we do want to discuss the fuel economy for this 4Runner. Now, it is going to be rated 1 mpg worse for 2020. That's just a difference in the EPA testing. Of course, like we mentioned, there's nothing different in the powertrain setup. So it's now going to come in at 16 city, 19 highway, 17 combined for both two-wheel drive and four-wheel drive. So definitely not great fuel economy. Like I said, this is a more traditional experience. So with that more traditional experience, you're going to get, you know, worse fuel economy.
Yep, a lot better than a Sequoia, though.
That is true.
And the Land Cruiser, which we were just in.
You do not get 14 miles.
Yeah. Now, you mentioned four-wheel drive, but you didn't talk about the available four-wheel drive systems. So it is worth mentioning that there's two different ones. We actually have the full-time four-wheel drive here in the Limited, where the other trims have the part-time four-wheel drive. So that's pretty much all there is to talk about here with the 4Runner's driving dynamics. So I'm just going to go ahead and conclude. You know, this is an old-school, classic SUV. You know, I think a lot of times when people review this, you know, 4Runner, they get in and they're like, oh, it's old, whatever, blah, blah, blah. But that is not the point of the 4Runner. You know, the people that want to buy this is exactly what they're looking for. Where you have that classic feel, that really masculine feel. You know, and for those of you who are looking for that, this still delivers exactly that, just now with some more modern touches.
Alright, so now let's go ahead and discuss the pricing for this 2020 4Runner. Now, something important worth mentioning here is that prices have risen about $1,000 to $2,000 depending on the trim level for 2020. So now the SR5 is going to start at $36,120, SR5 Premium $39,315, TRD Off-Road $39,840, TRD Off-Road Premium $42,570. This Limited $44,495, and then the Nightshade $46,725. Now we do have optional four-wheel drive, which is around $2,000, and then we also have a few different things added onto this one. So we have the leather-trimmed third row seat for $1,365, running boards for $599, mud guards for $129, and then we have something called Keep It Wild savings for $1,000, and then the destination charge of $1,120 brings this one's total to $49,133, which it certainly isn't cheap for, you know, something in this segment. However, if you compare it to other stuff like Jeep Grand Cherokee, this is going to be a little bit less expensive, and it's fully loaded configuration, and you are getting that signature 4Runner capability and a lot of luxury here in the Limited trim. Well guys, we really appreciate you watching this in-depth review of the 2020 Toyota 4Runner Limited. If you've made it this far in the video, hopefully that means you enjoyed at least a little bit, so be sure to pay us back by hitting that subscribe button down below. And we'll catch you next time as we sample more of the latest automotive delicacies.